My dad pointed at my brother's car and said, "Real man, real success," while everyone laughed at me for still living, like I was 15. So I calmly told them I rented that car for him, just so you know. I'm 34. And if I had to sum up my family dynamic in one sentence, it would probably be appearances matter more than truth, especially to my dad. He's the type who measures a man by the car, he drives the brand of his watch, or whether his shoes have visible scuffs. And my younger brother, Jake, oh, he learned from the best. Golden child since birth. Star athlete, business school grad, and the only person I know who once ironed a hoodie before going to the gym just in case someone saw him. Me. I'm quieter. I run a small but successful IT consulting business. Mostly remote work, good clients, stable income. I own my house outright, no mortgage. I live simply by choice. My car, a 2006 Honda Accord, isn't flashy, but it runs like a dream because I take care of it. It's been with me through thick and thin, and honestly, I've never seen the point of replacing something that still works perfectly just to impress people I don't even like all that much. But my dad doesn't see it that way. Every time we get together, he finds some way to jab at me. Sometimes it's subtle. "You still working from home, Ben? Must be nice not having to wear a tie." And sometimes it cuts a little deeper. And Jake, he plays along, always has. Ever since we were kids, it's been like this unspoken competition I never signed up for. I was the thoughtful one, the planner, the saver. Jake was the flashy risk taker, with a smile that could get him out of a parking ticket. And for some reason, that always won him points with Dad. It was a Sunday evening when it all started unraveling. My mom had invited us all over for dinner, something she does once every month or two to keep the family from drifting too far apart. She's the peacekeeper, always smoothing things over, always pretending we're a happy, tight-knit group. I love her, I really do. But sometimes I wish she'd just call it like it is. Anyway, I pulled up to their place a few minutes before 6 o'clock. Parked my Honda a little further down the street since the driveway was full. Jake's new BMW was parked front and center like it was posing for a magazine cover. Thing was spotless. Jet black tinted windows, custom rims. I remember thinking, that's a rental level shine, and I wasn't wrong. But we'll get to that. Dinner started off fine. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the works. My mom always goes all out. We did the usual small talk. How's work? How's the weather? How's your dog? Things you say when you're trying not to talk about anything real. Jake was late as usual. He strolled in like he owned the place, flashing that grin keys to the BMW dangling from his finger like a trophy. Dad clapped him on the back and said, "There he is, the man of the hour." I said nothing, just kept eating. A few minutes later, we were all seated passing plates and pretending not to count how many rolls Jake took before anyone else got one. And that's when it started. Dad turned to me with this smirk, forked me there and said, "So Ben, you still driving that old Honda?" He dragged out the word Honda like it tasted sour in his mouth. The whole table chuckled. Jake laughed louder than he needed to. And my uncle, who I forgot was even there until that moment, added, "Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?" I managed to smile. "It gets me where I need to go," I said, not looking up. But Dad wasn't done. He pointed his fork toward the window, gesturing at Jake's BMW like it was the Mona Lisa. "Now that's how a real man shows success," he said, his voice rising just enough to make sure everyone heard. "Drives a car that turns heads, that tells the world who he is not some rust bucket that belongs in a junkyard." My jaw tightened. I glanced at my mom. She looked down at her plate. Typical. Jake leaned back in his chair, folded his arms, and gave me this smug look like, "Sorry, man, I don't make the rules." And everyone else, they laughed. Not cruelly, not loudly, but the kind of laugh people do when they don't want to be left out. Like they don't even realize they're joining in on a slow-motion insult. I let it sit for a second, let the silence stretch just long enough for someone to wonder if they'd gone too far. Then I put my fork down, looked Dad square in the eye, and said, "Funny you should say that." He blinked. "Say what?" I nodded toward the BMW. "That car Jake's driving, he's been renting that from me for the past 8 months. The room froze. Jake's smirk vanished. My dad's face slackened like he couldn't quite process what I'd just said. My uncle stopped chewing. Even my mom finally looked up. And in that moment you could feel it, this tiny seismic shift in the room. Like the air itself had changed. But I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I just let the truth hang there like a painting nobody knew was fake until I pointed it out. And suddenly no one was laughing anymore. But that was just the beginning. Because that one sentence, it wasn't just a mic drop. It was a spark. And the fire it started would burn through every fake image, every lie, every ounce of respect my brother had coasted on for years. See, that car wasn't the only thing Jake had been renting, not by a long shot. And by the time it was all said and done, my dad would have to choose between the golden child he thought he raised and the quiet son he never bothered to understand. I wish I could say that after I dropped that bomb at the dinner table, people paused and reevaluated how they treated me. I wish I could say my dad apologized or that Jake finally looked ashamed for once in his life. But no, if anything, that moment only scratched the surface. What came next, the weeks that followed, showed me just how deep the rot really went. After I told everyone that Jake had been renting the BMW from me, there was this long silence, the kind that makes you hyper-aware of your own breathing. Jake tried to recover first. He laughed too loud, too forced, and said, "Come on, Ben, don't say it like that. Makes it sound like I'm broke or something." But he was broke, at least broke in the ways that mattered, and not just financially. But at that moment, I didn't push it. I let his deflections sit, let everyone chew on the quiet truth that Jake wasn't everything he pretended to be. My dad shook his head slowly like he didn't want to believe me. "What are you talking about?" he asked, voice low, unsure. I looked right at him. "I bought that BMW last year. Jake couldn't qualify for financing, so he asked if he could use it. I let him on the condition that he made payments each month, which he's been doing. Sometimes late, sometimes not at all." Jake jumped in. "It's temporary, just until the business picks up." "You said it was fine." I cut him off. "I said it was fine if you respected the deal, which you haven't." My mom started stacking plates, trying to smooth it over. Okay. Let's just finish dinner," she said gently, like this was just a minor squabble. Like someone hadn't just detonated a grenade in the middle of the table. I left early that night, didn't help clean up, didn't stay for dessert, just got in my old Honda, turned the key, and drove home with my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. I was tired of biting my tongue, of swallowing disrespect like it was just part of the family recipe. But that dinner was just the first crack. What followed was the landslide. It started with the little things. A week after the dinner, I got a call from Jake. He needed an extension on this month's payment for the BMW. Said he was waiting on a client and would have the money in 2 weeks. I'd heard this song before. At this point, I was more of a car lender than a brother. "You realize I could be leasing that out to someone else for twice what you're giving me, right?" I said. Jake sighed like I was the burden. "Come on, man. Don't be that guy. We're family. You know I'll get you back." Except I also knew he'd said that same sentence 4 times in the past year. And every time "get you back" meant eventually ghost your texts until you forget about it. Still, I let it slide again. Not because I believed him, but because I needed time. I was starting to see things more clearly. My patience wasn't infinite, and he was running out of chances. 2 weeks turned into 3. Then I found out from a mutual friend that Jake had gone on a weekend ski trip with his girlfriend. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I wasn't angry. I was done. I called him the next day. "You're a week past due," I said. "Where's the money?" He laughed. "Seriously, you're checking in on that right now?" "It's only a few $100, Ben. 480, actually." "Okay, but dude, I had a lot going on this month. Stressful stuff. You wouldn't understand." That sentence echoed in my head. You wouldn't understand. Like my life was just yoga and Netflix while he heroically fought dragons in the business world. "You have 3 days," I said. "Then the car's mine again. No more games." Jake hung up. 2 days later, my dad called me. That never happens. Usually we only talk in person during holidays or family events where he can roast me publicly. So getting a call from him felt off. "Ben," he said, "you threatening to take your brother's car?" I didn't say anything at first. I was so stunned he'd called just for that. Not to check in, not to ask how I was doing, just to defend Jake. I gave him a deal. "He didn't hold up his end," I finally said. "That's on him." Dad sighed. "Come on, you know he's trying. He's got a lot of pressure. That car helps him look successful, helps him land clients." "By lying." "It's not lying," he snapped. "It's branding." That word branding, like Jake was a startup, and the rest of us were investors being guilt-tripped into staying on board. "What about me?" I asked quietly. "When do I get the benefit of the doubt, the support? You mock my car, my job. But the second Jake's image is in jeopardy, you rally the troops." There was silence on the line. Then he said, "You've always been fine, Ben. Jake needs more help." That was his answer. You don't get support because you don't need it. As if being self-sufficient made me unworthy of respect. as if quiet consistency was less valuable than flashy chaos. That phone call was the breaking point. I started reviewing everything. The times I'd covered for Jake in college when he blew his tuition money on spring break, the times I'd fixed his laptop for free, helped him move, given him gas money, loaned him my tools, even designed his stupid business website, and never got paid for it. And my dad? He never once said thanks, never once acknowledged it. He just kept polishing Jake's image like it was some family trophy he didn't want anyone to see was cracked. But the worst was yet to come. 2 weeks later, Mom called to invite me to a family barbecue, said it'd be casual, just cousins and uncles and a few friends. I hesitated but agreed. I figured if nothing else, it'd be a chance to clear the air, maybe talk to Jake one-on-one. I showed up early to help my mom set up. She smiled when she saw me, gave me a hug, and handed me a tray of burgers to carry out back. "Thanks, honey," she said. "I'm glad you came." But then I saw it. Parked in the driveway, polished to perfection, was my BMW. I froze, walked up to it, noticed something different. A new decal on the back windshield. A small one, but unmistakable. Jake Ellison, Consulting Executive Mobility Services. I stared at it for a long time. That decal hadn't been there before. I marched inside, found Jake near the kitchen, and pulled him aside. "What is that?" I demanded. He looked at me confused. "What's what?" "The sticker on the car, advertising your business like you own it." He shrugged. "It's just branding, man. Helps with image. That's not your car?" "Ben, seriously, don't make a scene. It's just a sticker." My voice dropped. "You're using my car to pretend you run a luxury service business." He looked around nervously, then hissed, "Can we talk about this later?" "No," I said louder. "We talk now." People started turning to look. My dad stepped into view. "Ben," he warned, "don't ruin the barbecue." "I'm not ruining anything," I snapped. "Your son is." Jake grabbed my arm. "Fine. Come out front." We walked around to the side of the house out of earshot. "I needed the car for a pitch," he said. "That's it. I got a shot at landing a big client and, no, I cut in. You put your company name on it. You turned my property into an asset for your business without my permission." He looked annoyed. "Ben, why do you care so much? You're not even using the car. I've kept it clean. It's still in perfect condition. You just like having control." I stared at him for a long moment. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the app that tracked the car's GPS. I showed it to him. "You've driven over the mileage cap every month. You've taken it out of state multiple times. And last weekend ski trip while telling me you couldn't pay?" His eyes narrowed. "You're spying on me. I'm protecting my investment." He scoffed. "Man, you're pathetic." "That was it. You have 24 hours, I said. Then I'm taking it back." Jake stared at me like he couldn't believe I'd actually draw a line. "You wouldn't." I turned and walked away. But I would, and I was done playing nice. What I didn't know at that moment, what I wouldn't find out until a few days later, was that Jake had crossed a line even I didn't see coming. He hadn't just used my car to fake his success. He'd put my name down as a business partner on paperwork without telling me. Filed under my legal name with state records. I didn't even know until I got a tax document in the mail. That was the final betrayal. And once I discovered the extent of it, I knew this wasn't just a personal line he crossed. It was legal, and it was time to make him regret it. But I'll get to that, because the storm hadn't even hit yet. It was just circling, waiting for the right moment to crash through everything he'd built. You ever feel like your own family could stab you in the back and then hand you a napkin to clean up the mess they made? That's how I felt the day I opened the mail and found a thick, oddly official-looking envelope addressed to me. It wasn't junk. It had my full name, legal middle initial, and everything spelled correctly, which ruled out spam right away. I opened it while standing at the kitchen counter sipping lukewarm coffee in sweatpants, thinking it was maybe insurance stuff or tax nonsense. Instead, it was a notice from the state business registry. Apparently, I was listed as a co-founder of a company called Ellison Executive Mobility Solutions, LLC, Jake's company. Only, I never signed anything. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe they mixed us up. We're brothers after all. Maybe Jake listed me as an emergency contact and something got screwed up in the system. But no, he had filed me as a partner. My name was right there on the LLC paperwork, digitally signed and dated. I didn't even know you could fake that. I called the state office to ask how this happened, and after an hour on hold, the woman on the line kindly informed me that digital filing only requires a typed signature. "We don't verify names during submission," she said. "It's up to the involved parties to resolve disputes." In other words, congratulations, Mr. Ellison. If you want this mess cleaned up, you're on your own. That night I barely slept. I tossed and turned, running through all the worst-case scenarios. What if he'd racked up business debts? What if he used my credit somehow? What if he listed me on a tax document and I got hit with penalties down the line? And then there was the bigger question I didn't want to ask. Why? Why did my own brother do this to me? The next day, I marched into Jake's office, if you could even call it that. It was a cramped co-working space in a strip mall wedged between a vape shop and a failed gym. I knew the code to the door because I helped him move in months ago. It was empty when I arrived. Just a desk, a ring light, and a whiteboard full of buzzwords like high-ticket conversion and client retention funnel. Jake showed up 20 minutes later holding a Starbucks cup and wearing a blazer over a t-shirt like he was pitching a TED Talk. When he saw me, he froze. "Ben, you can't just barge in here, man." I held up the letter. "You put my name on a company without telling me." He didn't deny it. Not really. He did that thing where he tried to act confused like I was the crazy one. "I was going to loop you in. It was just temporary. For legal documents." "Are you out of your mind?" He sighed and set his coffee down. "Look, I needed a second name on the form. They wouldn't approve a sole proprietor filing because of how I structured the loan request. It's just for appearance. It's not like you actually own part of the business." "But I do." "Now," I said. "According to the state, according to the IRS, you used my identity." He threw his hands up. "I didn't steal anything. Okay, I just borrowed your name. I wanted to punch something. Not him even. Just a wall, a chair, the drywall behind that stupid whiteboard." "I'm reporting it," I said. "I'm removing myself from the business, and if there's any damage to my credit, I'm coming after you." Jake's smile faded. "You wouldn't do that." "I would, and I will." But I didn't report him, not right away, because something told me this was bigger than I realized. And I was right. Over the next month, my life hit a strange, frustrating low. I kept things bottled up, partly because I didn't know who to talk to, and partly because I was embarrassed. This wasn't just about Jake anymore. It was about how easily I let him walk all over me, how long I tolerated it. I started questioning myself. Had I been too quiet all these years? Too passive? Was I partly to blame for letting them think I was the one they could lean on, dump on, and discard? My dad called once during that month. Not to check on me, of course. He just wanted to know why Jake looked so down at Sunday dinner. I told him to ask Jake. His reply, "You don't need to be difficult." Difficult. That word rang in my ears like a bell. Suddenly, I was the difficult one. I ghosted family events after that, skipped 2 barbecues, a cousin's birthday, and a fishing trip my uncle tried to rope me into. I turned inward, shutting people out. I was bitter, resentful, and yet somehow more alone than ever. But funny enough, that solitude, it turned into something else. Clarity. I started spending my evenings differently. Instead of stewing in frustration, I began researching quietly, methodically. I looked up legal options, started compiling a paper trail, texts, bank transfers, emails, voicemails, screenshots of Jake's business website using the BMW. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew it was time I stopped waiting for justice and started building it myself. At the same time, I focused on rebuilding my own life. Not the external stuff. My career was still doing fine, but the internal scaffolding that had been slowly crumbling under years of being the responsible one who never rocked the boat. I signed up for a local mentorship group, just a small circle of business owners who met once a week for lunch and shared struggles, advice, ideas. I didn't expect much from it at first, but that group, they gave me something I didn't know I was missing. Respect. They listened when I spoke, they asked questions, they valued what I had to say. One of them, a retired woman named Helen who used to run a logistics company, told me something that stuck with me. "People who live off your silence will panic the moment you find your voice," she said. "So speak." I wrote that down. I stared at it every day. People who live off your silence will panic the moment you find your voice. And slowly, I started speaking. I reached out to my lawyer friend Corey. He wasn't a specialist in fraud or business law, but he pointed me in the right direction, helped me draft the necessary letters to legally remove my name from Jake's company, and advised me on how to file a formal complaint if Jake pushed back. I learned the steps. I took control. Not in an explosive, dramatic way, but in the way a person finally decides they're done being a doormat. At the same time, I upgraded my own business website, redesigned. My brand took on 2 new clients, started a YouTube channel offering tech tutorials and project management tips. Something I'd wanted to do for years, but never had the confidence to start. The subscribers trickled in slowly, but each one felt like a tiny validation that I had something worth saying. Then came the email that shifted everything. It was from a woman named Tara, someone I didn't recognize at first. She introduced herself as a contractor who'd been considering working with Jake's company, but something about the business seemed off, so she did some digging. She found my name on the LLC listing and tracked me down through LinkedIn. Her message was cautious. Are you really involved with Ellison Executive Mobility Solutions? Because I have questions. We set up a call. Tara was smart professional. She didn't give away too much, but from what I gathered, Jake had pitched her on a high-end client transport service for executives visiting our city. He promised black car luxury airport pickups and white glove experiences. All of it sounded impressive until she saw the address listed on the company's site. It led her to the same strip mall co-working space. That raised a red flag. She also noticed the company's Instagram used only stock photos and never tagged actual clients or events. Another red flag. Then she found my name on the filing and thought, maybe this is the real brains behind it. I told her the truth. Everything. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, that confirms what I suspected. We hung up, but a seed had been planted. Jake didn't know it yet, but his empire built on lies, borrowed names and rented cars was starting to crack. And I was finally in a place to do something about it. Not just emotionally, but legally and publicly. But before I lit the match, I had one last thing to do. Face my father. Because as much as Jake was the one who forged my name, who manipulated and exploited me, it was my dad who made me feel like standing up for myself was somehow wrong. Like my quiet strength was weakness. Like I was the difficult one for daring to want respect. So I invited him to coffee. Just him and me. Neutral ground. He showed up, of course. My dad's the kind of guy who doesn't turn down free coffee, especially if he thinks he'll get to lecture someone in the process. He sat down, sipped his drink, and asked, so what's this about? I looked him straight in the eye and said, it's about Jake and you and me. His smile faded. I know what Jake did. I said, I know about the LLC. I know how you defended him. I know you think I'm overreacting. I never said that. You didn't have to. Your silence said enough. He leaned back. Look, Jake's always been a little reckless, but no, I interrupted. Don't minimize it. He forged my name, committed fraud, and you've been enabling him for years. He frowned. Ben, this isn't who you are. That made me laugh. You're right, it's not who I was, but I'm done being quiet. He didn't say much after that. Just sat there uncomfortable, probably realizing that the son he thought he could ignore had found a spine. I left the coffee shop that day feeling lighter, stronger, like I'd finally stepped into my own life. But I wasn't done. Jake still had no idea what was coming. And by the time he found out the illusion, he built the car, the business, the reputation would come crumbling down. Because the truth, I wasn't just speaking anymore. I was planning. And the first real move was already in motion. There's a strange clarity that comes when you stop hoping someone will change. When you stop waiting for them to do the right thing. When you finally accept that they won't and decide to act anyway. After that meeting with my dad, I walked away with no illusions left. He wasn't going to stand up for me. He wasn't going to hold Jake accountable. I wasn't going to get an apology or even an acknowledgement of the mess Jake had created with my name attached to it. But I wasn't walking away empty-handed. Because now I had something better than approval. I had momentum, and I had a plan. The first step, clean up the legal side. I wasn't going to let my name linger on anything Jake touched. With help from my friend Corey and the business mentorship group, I filed paperwork to remove myself from the LLC. It took a couple of weeks, but the process was straightforward once I got my ducks in a row. I attached proof that I never agreed to the partnership. Emails, texts, lack of consent. Then I sent a courtesy notice to Jake. He responded within an hour. Jake, are you seriously doing this right now? Me, I already did it. You'll get the official notice soon. Jake, dude, you're overreacting. This is going to screw everything up. Me, you should have thought of that before forging my name. Jake, unbelievable. You really are the jealous type. Huh? That last message made me laugh. Jealous of what? A rented car, a fake business, and a resume held together with duct tape and Photoshop. That was the final straw. I wasn't just walking away anymore. I was going to burn the stage he kept performing on. But not all at once. I didn't want revenge that just made a mess. I wanted the kind that left no question who was behind it. I wanted control precision. I wanted the kind of revenge that didn't just expose the truth. It made it impossible to ignore. So I started gathering kindling. The first piece came from Tara, the contractor who'd reached out to me after seeing my name on the LLC. She and I stayed in touch, and as it turned out, she wasn't the only one Jake had tried to charm with his shiny pitch deck and executive car service. There were others, clients he'd courted, deals he'd teased, and even a few early investors who were starting to ask questions. Half the stuff he promised never materialized, Tara told me in one call. He said he had a fleet of cars-trained drivers and exclusive airport partnerships. But all he ever showed was that one BMW, my BMW. Tara connected me with two other former prospects. One was a small marketing agency that almost signed a contract before backing out due to bad vibes. The other, a local startup CEO, who said Jake flaked on a trial run and never returned calls after they asked for a formal invoice. Each of them gave me more fuel. Names, dates, screenshots, promises unkept. Then I remembered something from months ago, back when I helped Jake build his business website. He'd begged me to set up the site, said he couldn't afford a designer. I'd done it for free like an idiot. And like a bigger idiot, I used my own account to register the domain, which meant I still had back-end access. I logged in one night, heart pounding, and there it was. His full site sitting on the platform I had control over. He'd changed the password to his business email, but he never changed the master credentials for the hosting account. Classic Jake. All flash, no follow-through. I didn't touch anything. Not yet. But knowing I held the keys, that changed everything. I spent the next few weeks watching from the shadows. Every time Jake posted a client success story on Instagram, I ran a reverse image search. Stock photos. Every time he mentioned a partnership, I checked the company's site. Nothing about him. Every time he claimed to be fully booked, I tracked the car GPS. Most days it never left his driveway. It was a house of cards. All I had to do was pick the moment to flick it over. But timing was everything, so I waited. Then 2 weeks later, my opportunity arrived. My mom called. "Hey, sweetie," she said, a little hesitant. "We're having everyone over again for Dad's birthday, just family and a few close friends. It would mean a lot if you came." I almost said no. I hadn't been to a family gathering in months. But then she added Jake's planning to make a little announcement. Something about the business finally taking off. There it was, the stage. He was about to give another performance, and this time I'd be in the front row. I told her I'd be there. The next day, I opened my laptop and got to work. First, I prepared a small presentation. Nothing flashy, just a collection of screenshots, photos of the fake clients, messages from people he'd scammed, the tax forms, the forged LLC filing, and for good measure, a little montage of all the promises he'd made on social media versus the reality. I organized them into a neat slideshow. Then I wrote out my statement, practiced it, tightened the language. I didn't want emotion to get in the way. This wasn't about vengeance, it was about truth. I called Tara and asked for one last favor. She agreed without hesitation. "I owe you," she said. "And honestly, I want to see this guy fall." The final piece of the setup came 2 days before the party. I called Jake. He didn't answer, so I left a voicemail. "Hey, heard you're making an announcement at Dad's birthday. Just wanted to say I'm excited to hear it." He texted back, "Didn't think you'd come. Hope we can be cool." I smiled. "Oh, I'm cool, Jake. I'm ice." When the day came, I dressed sharp. Not over the top, not trying to compete, but confident. Clean blazer-polished shoes. That quiet kind of put together that doesn't scream for attention, but earns it anyway. I drove the Honda, of course, because I wasn't hiding. The backyard was packed. String lights, folding chairs, trays of catered food. Jake was already there holding court in a blue suit and Ray-Bans doing that politician grin he'd perfected. Dad stood beside him like a proud campaign manager. Then my mom called, arms open. "Glad you made it." I hugged her, nodded at my dad. He gave me a half smile. Jake didn't even look at me, just kept chatting up some guy about expanding into new markets. The night went on. People laughed, drank, posed for pictures in front of a rented photo booth with the logo EMS printed on the backdrop. That's right, Jake had made a fake step-in repeat banner. My name had been on that logo once. Then, around dessert, my dad clinked his glass and said, "If I could have everyone's attention for just a minute." It was time. He turned to Jake and smiled like the son he raised was about to walk on water. "My boy's been working hard," he said. "We all know that. And tonight, he has something special to share." Jake. Jake stepped forward, all charisma and cologne. He pulled out his phone and started playing a little video montage. Shots of the BMW, my car. Blurry clips of him walking into hotel lobbies. Drone footage he clearly bought online. I just want to say Jake began when I started Ellison Executive Mobility Solutions. People doubted me. They said I was dreaming too big. But now we're growing. We've closed 3 new clients, and next month I'll be launching our second vehicle. Applause. Even my dad clapped like he'd just watched a boy become a man. Jake went on, eyes shining. It's been a long road, and I couldn't have done it without family. My parents for always believing in me. My girlfriend for sticking through the chaos. And of course my brother Ben, who inspired me to chase this dream. That was my cue. I stepped forward, cleared my throat. Actually, Jake, I said loud enough to stop the music, there's something I'd like to say too. All eyes turned to me. Jake froze and I smiled because every piece was in place. And the next move, checkmate. The air was electric. That kind of silence where everyone's frozen with their eyes locked on you, unsure if you're about to give a toast or detonate a bomb. And I was holding the detonator. Jake stood stiffly beside our dad's smile already cracked, posture starting to shift. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His body said enough. The nervous shuffle of his feet, the twitch at the corner of his mouth, like he knew this was it. I pulled my phone from my pocket and took a breath. I wasn't planning to say anything, I began, but since my name got mentioned, I think it's only fair I set the record straight. A few people shifted in their chairs. Someone laughed nervously. Jake took one step toward me. Ben, maybe now's not the time. But I ignored him. I opened my phone and mirrored it to the TV Jake had used for his video montage. The same screen that was showing slow-mo footage of him shaking hands with blurred-out businessmen now displayed a different slideshow, one I had prepared carefully, quietly, and in absolute detail. Slide 1. A screenshot of the state LLC filing with my name listed as co-founder circled in red. First, Jake filed me as a business partner in his company without my knowledge or consent. I didn't sign anything. He used my legal identity without asking me. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My uncle leaned forward. One of our cousins covered her mouth. Slide 2. A copy of the email from the state confirming my removal from the LLC dated 2 weeks ago. I had to go through legal channels to remove myself from his business and protect my credit and tax record. Jake's mouth opened slightly. He didn't speak, just stood there like a statue, carved out of panic. Slide 3. The GPS tracker history from my car. The car Jake had been using to present himself as a luxury service provider. It showed his weekend ski trip, the repeated over-mileage drives and out-of-state routes that violated our original agreement. Jake's business pitch, the one he just gave you, it's built on this BMW right here, I said, pointing out the window. That car isn't his. It's mine. He's been renting it from me for almost a year. Late on payments, too. Someone near the back let out a low, "Oh." Slide 4. Screenshots of Jake's website showing testimonials. Below that, I showed the same photos in their original context, stock image catalogs untouched and unedited. Slide 5. Messages from Tara and the 2 other near clients he misled. One had emailed a short statement I'd printed out and read aloud. Jake Ellison promised our firm exclusive transport services backed by airport contracts and a verified vehicle fleet. Upon investigation, none of these claims could be substantiated. Proceed with caution. I turned back to the crowd. There's no fleet, no train drivers, no contracts. There's just Jake in my car pretending. The silence that followed was deafening, not out of confusion, but out of clarity. Jake's face was pale. He looked at our dad, searching for something, backup, denial, a lifeline. But Dad didn't meet his eyes. His jaw was tight. His arms were crossed. I closed the slideshow. I didn't do this to embarrass anyone, I said. But my name's been tied to this lie long enough. I spent years staying quiet, years helping, covering, bailing him out. And all I got in return was disrespect. I turned to Jake directly. You used my name, my car, my work. And the worst part? You never said thank you. You just expected it like I owed it to you. Jake finally spoke. Ben, I didn't mean— Yes, you did, I interrupted. You meant to cheat the system and you meant to let me take the fall if it didn't work. But I'm not cleaning up your mess anymore. And with that, I walked out. I didn't wait for applause. I didn't wait for the aftermath. I just left. The cool night air outside felt like a full-body exhale. I got in my Honda, started the engine, and pulled away. No music, no rush, just peace. But the story didn't end at the barbecue. The fallout came fast, and it came hard. 2 days later, Jake's website went offline. I didn't touch it, even though I could have. No, this time it was his hosting account that got flagged after Tara and the other 2 filed formal complaints for misrepresentation and attempted fraud. Apparently, one of the investors he'd pitched had also seen the slideshow through a cousin who'd been at the party, and they started asking for their money back. Jake tried damage control, posted a half-hearted stepping away to restructure message on Instagram, turned off the comments when it got flooded with questions, deleted half his past posts. But by then it was too late. The co-working space canceled his lease due to misrepresentation of business activity. The banner with the company logo thrown in the trash. The BMW returned to me quietly. He parked it at the edge of my driveway one night, keys in the mailbox. No note, no text. He didn't even ask for the money he'd paid back. Dad didn't say much afterward. He called me once 2 weeks later. Just said I didn't know it was that bad. I replied, "You didn't want to know." He sighed. You're right. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest he'd ever come. And that was enough. A month after the fallout, I posted a new video on my growing YouTube channel. A story just vague enough to not mention names, but clear enough to carry the lesson. It was titled, "What Happens When You Let People Borrow Your Name?" It hit a nerve. Tens of thousands of views, hundreds of comments, people sharing their own stories, their own wake-up calls. I didn't reply to all of them, but I read every word. Because in those comments, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Validation. Not for being flashy or loud or charming, but for being steady, for being honest, for finally standing up. Jake moved cities shortly after. Rumor has it he's rebranding and starting a new project. I haven't heard from him since, and honestly, I don't care to. I hope he figures himself out. I really do. But this time, he'll have to do it without my name on the paperwork. As for me, I'm good. My car is still running like a dream. My business is growing. My life is quiet, but it's mine. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not carrying anyone else's lies, only my own truth. Let them rent cars, let them rent respect. I'd rather own mine.